This is the House of Parliament where men and women have sat for decades, making decisions that would affect all our lives. Do they really work in the interests of the people or themselves? They sit at the round tables, trying to decipher which way to turn. Is it left or is it right? Have the people benefited from those decisions? Our people have suffered for far too long. Change should not be a figment of the imagination, but reality. Every boy, every girl, every man, every woman are equally important. The market vendor joyfully sells her produce. The fish vendor skillfully uses his cutlass to cut the fish. Keep on working. Let your smile be your motivation. Build a community of brotherly and sisterly love. Don't give up on your dreams. Surround yourself with positive thinkers. Think big and keep on moving. Keep pushing the envelope. Yes, push that envelope until you have succeeded. You may have made many mistakes, but that is no reason to stop. Don't you dare give up. Get ready for that overflow. Get ready for that breakthrough. The overflow is coming. Showers of blessings. Stay cool. Stay calm. Stay collective. Ride the rough waves of life. Hold on to that rope tightly. Just keep working. Keep moving. Keep believing. Self-motivation. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Lies and Deceit. I am your host, Soraya Alexander, better known as Soso. I know many of you have been waiting from yesterday, all excited to hear your former Prime Minister, the current leader of the opposition, Honorable Alan Michael Chastanet. And it's going to be a very interactive show tonight because I believe not only the supporters of the United Workers' Party are griping to hear the leader of the opposition, because many people are confused as to what happened in the House. And what we as St. Lucians need to understand, whether you support the St. Lucia Labour Party or the United Workers' Party, or you're just an independent floating voter, it is your right to hear from your parliamentarian. Because when you voted for someone to represent you, you did not vote for someone at the whims and fancy of any prime minister. So this is why the various members of parliament need to understand that the power lies in the hands of the people who elected you. Yes, you work within a structure. You have a cabinet. You have a prime minister. However, you are accountable to your constituents as to what you bring to the table. It is egregious that we had like 4 parliamentarians not speaking on behalf of the people who elected them. I would be very, very disappointed, and I would feel insulted that my parliamentarian or my rep did not speak for me to hear what he is saying. Presently, Joachim Henry is my rep for Castries South East. He spoke. However, when we elect those men and women, they are not a law or they are not a God unto themselves. whether it's SLP or UWP. They're supposed to represent the interest of their constituents and, by extension, the people of St. Lucia. And the disrespect, as you all saw in the House last week, where the rep for Castries South, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, flexed his muscles by saying if the leader of the opposition does not speak by a certain time, he will not get the opportunity to speak. This is no way engraved in any of the orders, the standing orders or whatever they call it. It is not engraved there. Basically, the so-called Deputy Prime Minister of St. Lucia gave us a Chris Rock special, slapped us in our faces by saying to you, I am going to flex my muscles and not allow this man, Alan Chastanet, to speak. It's a personal vendetta, and I can tell you, if this administration continues in this vein, our country is going to collapse. Where is the inclusion that this Philip J. Pierre administration promised? Where is the inclusion? And you don't have to like somebody, but you have to respect the people who elected them. You have Stephenson King with the biggest allocation in terms of what happens in the budget, and he sat there and he did not speak. Isn't that gross disrespect, not only to the people who elected him, but to the people of St. Lucia by extension? Then we have Emma Hippolyte, Minister of Commerce, who found it within herself to accept the rubbish that her leader, Philip J. Pierre, did by not allowing her to speak. And whereas we all are catching our butts when it comes to the prices in the supermarket, if this government does not cushion these prices, many of us won't be able to survive in this country. And many of us are going to pack our bags and leave and go to greener pastures, because you cannot tell me, I'm speaking as a mother, it is extremely difficult living in this country. Everything has risen, and we have a prime minister that continues to say he can't do anything for the people of St. Lucia. Now, before I bring on my guest, I must say to all of you, you guys went crazy from this morning. The coffees were flowing like, the rivers of Babylon. And I want to thank you all for that, every single one of you. I want to thank you for that, because you're catching on the vision. And I am prepared to go out there and march against this wicked government. And without further ado, I am going to bring on, I don't care who's going to get vexed, I am going to bring on the People's Prime Minister. I am going to bring on the leader of the opposition. I am going to bring on the political leader of the United Workers' Party. And I am going to bring on a husband and a father. Welcome, Honorable Alan Michael Chastanet.
Great to be with you tonight, Soraya. Thank you so very much for that incredible introduction.
You are very, very welcome, and thanks for accepting my invitation, because my audience is so eager to listen to you, because so many things has happened. But before we start, how do you feel? I need to understand, because personally, I don't understand. Tell me your secret, because you sat in the House of Parliament, and not only in the House of Parliament, for years. 2016, 2021, you're no longer the Prime Minister, right? You are now the opposition leader, but yet there is so much hate directed towards you. I watched the hate, especially of Dr. Unesile. What was going through your mind? How were you able to just sit there so calm, cool, and collective? Many of us can't do that.
You know, I think that Soraya, the answer really is the fact that this is not about me. It's never been about Alan Chastanet. This has always been about St. Lucia. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about each day trying to make progress and moving this country forward. It's irrelevant to me what is said about me on an individual basis. And I said something and I genuinely mean it. I think that the progress that we've made as United Workers' Party in the last 5 years, I would have much preferred if the Labour Party came out and said they're going to do better. And not only said they were going to do better, but actually did better. And I would be the first to tip my hat to them. Because that's what this is about. This is about moving our country forward. But the individual attacks, and to your point, I can say to you, I was sitting in the house, and the venom, the hatred that was targeted to me, what's that all about? It's not about putting people first.
Exactly.
You know, there were some statements that were made by the Prime Minister. And I think it's very, very important to take a step back sometimes and really analyze what has been said. And he said that there were people who were born with golden spoons in their mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that was directed to me. But the reality is that despite how I look and how I speak, I came from the same background as many other solutions. As I said, my grandparents, my grandfather was a bastard child.
Mm-hmm.
And both he and my grandmother, he was a customs officer, and my grandmother was a baker from Toulouse.
Wow.
And they had 9 children. Mm-hmm. My father was the 8th. They actually had 10, but one of them died.
Okay.
My father was the 8th, the second to last. And my father only has a high school education. My mother, a high school education, and she was Irish and came from a very impoverished family and decided to leave Ireland. She thought, you know, the irony, Soraya, you would love this, is she thought Ireland was too small.
Really?
And she left and she went to England to study nursing.
Mm-hmm.
And to say to you who my mother was, that her friends in England at nursing school were St. Lucians. That's who she befriended. And she was on her way to Canada, and her St. Lucian friend said to her, look, before you go to Canada, come to St. Lucia.
St. Lucia.
And in those days, to come to St. Lucia, it wasn't by plane, it was by boat.
Boats.
And she came here and she saw my father by William Peter Boulevard and fell in love with my father instantly.
Wow.
And she ended up marrying my father. So here it was that I had 2 parents. Neither one of them had a university degree. Both of them worked very, very hard. My mom actually opened up a little shop. My father was in the shipping business. And it was very difficult for him. And he left and moved to Puerto Rico. So in 1967, when I was 7 years of age, we moved to Puerto Rico. We lived there for 6 years. And that's why I did not have the benefit of learning Creole. Okay. I actually ended up learning Spanish. And after Puerto Rico, he retired and he moved to Miami. We hated Miami. We moved back to St. Lucia. And I have to say to you, Soraya, it was then, without me even understanding, that I started to have an appreciation of development. I came back home and I really did not like the education system here. I went to comprehensive school. I went to St. Mary's College, and I found what they were trying to do was to um, teach me how to memorize and not teach me how to think. And I begged my father that I needed to leave. I mean, and I had a great life. I mean, my father had come back home.
Mm-hmm.
He had been successful as a business person.
Mm-hmm.
And I would leave school at 2:30. I would go to the beach and have a great time. But I knew that would not take me somewhere. And I begged him to send me away to school, and he sent me to boarding school in Canada. And so I finished my high school degree in Canada, and then because I traveled so much, I decided to stay in Canada for my university degree. And I came home. I came home and worked in the Ministry of Economic Development, initially as the lowest grade that you could possibly get. And then I grew and I became an economist.
Okay.
I left St. Lucia after 3 years, and I moved to Washington, D.C., where I worked for an entity called ESIPS, Eastern Caribbean Investment Promotion Services, so for the OECS. And I was also doing my master's degree, and I was working as a waiter at the same time. After completing my degree, I came home and I worked for Windjammer Landing. And after working for Windjammer Landing, I became the director of tourism for St. Lucia. And then I left and went to work for an individual who I admire very greatly, a guy called Chris Blackwell, who started Island Records,
Okay.
who discovered Bob Marley. And he'd sold his company, and he'd now got into the hotel business. And I was very keen. This is 1992. I was super keen on the idea of village tourism. And I went to work with Chris for a project in Jamaica called Arakabessa, which was to be the first really village tourism project. And I worked for him a couple of years, and then I left, and I went to work for Air Jamaica. Worked for Air Jamaica for 8 years, and then I decided to come back home. And when I came back home, it was to open up Coco Creole, and then eventually opening up Coco Palm. Again, I had the opportunity of building a hotel on the beach at Shock, or building Coco Creole and Coco Palm under the idea of village tourism. And that's what I chose to do. That's where I invested my money, and my family's money was in that project.
Now let me just ask you something. Not cutting you short, but let me just ask you something. Take for instance that Philip J. Pierce said in the House, and I think that picture has been painted of you so wrongly, and he continues to do that. And what you said about your mother really caught my attention, because I realized that Mrs. Chastanet, she is very, very, how will I say it? She is very connected with the underprivileged, because I always see her, people always maybe see her during the Christmas time, but Mrs. Chastanet, your mom, always helps out because she knew where she came from. Now, I believe what these people are doing, because of your father's success and your mom's success, they have just blanket you, put you in a box to say, oh, you never knew being poor. Not that you were poor, but you understood the plight of the people, because your father's people came from Toulouse. And I believe it is very dishonest that we have a prime minister sitting in the House of Parliament creating an impression to the people of St. Lucia that you cannot understand where we come from. And every Christmas, your mom sits in her house with hundreds of baskets. Now, they're going to say, oh, because you were prime minister, she's doing that. No. She has always been doing that, because look, last year, 2021, he was not the prime minister of St. Lucia. And Mrs. Chastanet, that is the former prime minister, Alan Michael Chastanet's mother, she did the same. So I want to ask a very, very important question. We, the people of St. Lucia, have seen Raquel Chastanet and Mrs. Chastanet going all out helping the poor. But we have a prime minister who can insult you and by extension your family, your mother and family, saying you had a golden spoon. I haven't seen Philip J. Pierre's wife, I haven't seen his children, I haven't seen anybody putting their face in the public showing us what they are doing. So it is very insulting to we the people of St. Lucia that a prime minister could have such a vile narrative.
So I'm going to take I'll probably arrive at the same conclusion as you did, but maybe a bit of a different approach. So 3 generations ago, we had mothers and fathers who were vendors, farmers, because that's what we had in St. Lucia, who sacrificed every single thing that they had to help educate their children, to become lawyers, doctors, nurses, whatever. And the output of that, look at Parliament. How many parliamentarians have either a first degree, a second degree, and even some of them a PhD?
Exactly.
That their parents sacrificed to help them move forward, because that's what it's all about. So are you telling me that either they or now that their children are privileged and are born of golden spoons in their mouth, and that because of that, all of a sudden they're no longer St. Lucian?
Exactly.
You know, Soraya, I've spent the majority of my adult life in St. Lucia. I'm proud of the fact that I played on the national basketball team and captained that team. I am proud that I'm committed to developing this country. I am proud of the fact that every time I went away, the first thing I wanted to do was learn and to come back home and to bring back what I learned back home. And I want to see St. Lucia progress. Exactly. So if I was born with this golden spoon in my mouth, why on earth would I be doing all that I have? And
exactly.
I'm even more proud of the fact that my mother adopted this country. My father, how can you be any more St. Lucian than my father?
Exactly.
How can you be? And so how is it that my father can have an offspring and that anybody can consider that person to be any lesser than any other St. Lucian?
Exactly.
So the point is that all of these things are distractions.
Sure.
That's all of this is. It's a distraction. And as I said, that the budget unraveled the big lie.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
You know, the Labour Party had made this big thing that we had borrowed all of this money, that we'd acted irresponsibly. So what did we see in the budget? That the interest payments remained the same, principal payments remained the same. How can that be? How can mathematically that we've borrowed all this money, but yet interest payments and principal payments
is the same? So that means if you had borrowed all that money, principal should have increased, interest should have increased. But you see, he needs to explain to the people of St. Lucia net borrowing, which he is not doing. So he's coming up with the lie that
what a great term, Sarai. Net borrowing. I mean, that's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line, net borrowing.
You know, so here it is that yes, we were borrowing money from the World Bank and the IMF and CDB, but the bonds that were coming due, that people wanted their cash, it means when they redeemed the bonds, we were paying off debt.
Exactly.
So we were paying off debt that was at 6 and 7% interest rates, and replacing it with debt that was at 0.5%.
Exactly. So putting your fiscal position in a healthy place. However, right now, what is he doing? $500 million? What is?
And guess what? And the way he's justifying it is saying that he's borrowing money from development agencies at concessional rates. And the reality is, the vast majority of the borrowings that he has this term was because of us.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
I listened to this, and we have to go back in time. When we were confronted with COVID, the Labour Party said that we should have kept the borders closed to protect lives. And every single time that a person died, they said it was blood on my hands. That's what I was made to feel. Okay? And in 18 months, 88 people, 88 solutions lost their life because of COVID. And the reality is that high blood pressure, hypertension,
Diabetes.
and elderly people, which make up the vast majority of our population, are more vulnerable to COVID. And 5,000 people became infected. So we decided immediately after the closure from April until June to reopen our economy, because we adopted a policy called coexisting with COVID.
With COVID, right.
Today, the world has adopted the policy of what? Living with COVID.
COVID.
Same thing. Right? And we were able to do it in a manner in which we protected lives,
Yes.
but also allowed livelihoods to be protected.
Exactly.
We also said that because we had lost tourism and that we would never be able to recover tourism in the immediate time because of all the COVID protocols globally, that we would focus on construction. Now, the Labour Party is accustomed to stimulus by giving people jobs to cut grass on the side of the road.
The road.
And we said we weren't going to do that. We were going to create the largest economic stimulus program and fix up roads. They said that you can't eat roads. We now know you need roads to eat. We said by focusing on fixing up roads and the infrastructure of the country, we would create momentum so when the world reopened, we actually had momentum and we would have had an improved country.
Exactly.
Okay? So between opening up the borders, emphasizing construction, the economy recovered. So in fact, St. Lucia had the fastest recovering economy in the entire Caribbean. Guyana never went down, and Guyana went up because of the discovery of oil. So let's put Guyana aside. Of all the remaining countries, St. Lucia was the fastest recovered. Let's put that in perspective, because we always like to compare ourselves to Barbados. Barbados' economy only grew by 1.2%. St. Lucia has grown by 7%.
Yes, I did the calculations. I researched it. I took information from the IMF. And the thing I find about my St. Lucian people, you would present the facts to them because you took a hit. In 2019, you were averaging at 2.12 billion US dollars GDP. And then when COVID hit, you slumped to 1.62 in 2020, and then in 2021, because of you being very frugal in the way you were managing the pandemic, we went up to 1.72 billion US dollars, putting an average of 6 to 7% increase in our GDP. Now, these are the things St. Lucians don't understand. So they're saying we went down, we took a hit because you borrowed and you gave your friends, your family, and everybody money.
You know, I think that the presentation by the former Prime Minister, Kenny Anthony, really explains a lot, Soraya. So in his presentation, he said that my government mismanaged the economy between 2020 and 2021.
Which is not true. And let me tell you that in front of the world and everybody who sees this show. We St. Lucians have to apologize to you, Mr. Honorable Alan Michael Chastanet. You took the bull by its horn. You were dealing with a situation as a new prime minister that you knew nothing about. It just came on you. And I must commend you, and especially Dominic Fede, because you guys are the guru in terms of tourism. You kept us afloat, but you were also smart enough to realize that we don't eat roads, but the roads would improve our GDP by people being able to survive. And now Richard Frederick, the talker, is on his show giving a presentation of the budget, saying his prime minister said now we have to generate, we have to do construction to grow the economy. They have placed $165 million aside for roads. People don't eat roads, so why are they doing roads? They should just be given money free. Go ahead, sir.
And there's even more evidence. So let us understand that when Kenny Anthony said something went wrong, right? What went wrong was that the government was borrowing money to pay for a deficit, meaning that they had more expenses than they had revenue.
Yes.
And so the money that they were borrowing was not going into actually anything productive. It was just to pay for expenses.
Right.
So in 2016, I inherited an economy that could not borrow any more money. I inherited an economy in which 25% of the working population was unemployed. And more importantly, 44% of the young people were unemployed. Almost 50% of the people.
And that's a wide margin. 44%. This is
44%.
Wide.
Okay. COVID is the worst catastrophe to happen in our lifetime, and if I dare say, in the history of St. Lucia. Yet, with the interventions of my government, unemployment, which went from 25% to 16%, went up to 21%. And today, it's probably substantially less than 21%. It never reached 25%. And more importantly, as you know, Soraya, we had to borrow $300 million.
Yes, I know.
And I was able to do it in 3 months.
In 3 months.
So it means that people had confidence. We gained the confidence back in the country.
Exactly.
The reality is that this government can present the largest budget in the history of St. Lucia only because of the success that we've had and the policies we put in place for the last year.
Now, not cutting you short, I am a bit, it's true you said about it's because of the policies and the success you had. That is why they are able to come with this big budget. But I am frightened, and many St. Lucians are frightened because this prime minister hasn't showed us his vision. He is actually piggybacking on what your government has done.
So let's follow that. So in opposition, they said, do not reopen the economy.
Mm-hmm.
If we had listened, where would we be?
Mm-hmm.
They said not to borrow money. If we had not borrowed the money, where would we be today?
Exactly.
Okay? Then he said, in his budget, that's his budget, he said he was going to increase the threshold of taxation from the $1,800 a month right now to $4,000 a month.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. It wasn't there. It wasn't there. No.
It wasn't there.
No.
He said he was going to eliminate property tax.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to happen.
No.
Okay? He said he was going to give, if it was him, instead of giving people $500 a month,
he would give given people $1,500.
$1,500 a month, you know. We're all talking about $1,500.
For 3 months.
$1,500 a month.
Can you believe this?
So here it is that the revenue has returned, the economy is looking stronger, and he's still not giving them the $1,500.
So something is wrong. So this is not a budget for the people. Because it's not a budget for the people. Because when I went through the figures and different things, I am seeing this is a budget for everybody who helped this government win.
Absolutely. This is about putting politics first, not about putting people first.
Exactly.
So you know, even when you go back, and I hope your listeners will forgive me. When you go back to the idea of that I did not speak, if in fact all of the members of the Labour Party had spoken, and I still did not speak, Soraya, shame on me.
Yes, yes. Shame on you.
Me.
Yes, I agree with that. If you did not speak, yes.
But the reality is that the government cut the budget short. So the budget started on Wednesday at 10 o'clock. Normally you would see budget debates going into midnight.
Yes.
We finished the budget at 6 o'clock on Wednesday. We recommenced the budget at 10 o'clock on Wednesday. They did not even take a lunch break. They stopped the budget at 3 o'clock on Thursday with 5 speakers who did not speak, representing 50% of the budget. So you have to ask yourself the question, what caused the government to prematurely stop the budget? Was it because it was curfew? Was it because that people were exhausted? Was it because the TV was not working? No. Ernest Hilaire said exactly why it was stopped. Simply because I refused to be ordered as to when I should speak.
I totally agree with that.
And I want to say this. I want to say this to everyone. My refusal was not about being difficult, and people want to make these comparisons all the time. So when the Labour Party was in opposition in the last Parliament, we sat down. We agreed on a speaking order. We agreed that they had 6 persons, and we had 12. Sorry, 11. So we agreed that every 2 people, 1 person from the Labour Party would speak. 2 people from UNP, 1 person from the Labour Party.
Even odd, yes.
And when it came to the end, it became 1, 1, 1, 1. Now, we did not tell them who had to speak. We only said that these would be the speaking order, and it was for them to decide. So I want everybody to sit back for a second. If in fact now that you have 15 speakers of the Labour Party and 2 speakers from United Workers' Party, what would you recommend to be the speaking order? And think for a moment. The Labour Party wanted it to be that the Prime Minister would have spoken, the Leader of the Opposition would speak afterwards, and then Bradley would speak after that. So you would have the Prime Minister speak, the 2 opposition people speak, and then now you would have 15 people speak afterwards. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, why would I want to speak early if I am to provide a rebuttal to the budget?
Exactly.
I have to hear people speak.
Exactly.
So how can it not be that, okay, you have 15 speakers, allow 7 or 8 speakers to speak, allow Bradley to go, and then allow either 7 or 8 speakers to go, and the Leader of the Opposition. And the fact is that even if I go at the end, the Prime Minister has the last say.
Exactly.
What's the difficulty in that?
The difficulty was to prevent you from speaking and to ridicule you.
And for what reason?
Exactly.
For what reason? And then you want to stand there as the leader of government business to believe that you get to dictate the order of talking. So yes, if we can agree on a schedule of talking, no problem. So when I sat down with him and he said to me, you must speak at this time. And I said, well, Ernest, I'm so sorry. I cannot commit to that. So he said, well, you're not going to be able to speak. I said, well, that's a chance I will have to take. Never thinking that this government would go so low as to prevent 5 ministers representing 50% of the budget from speaking. That's absurd. And it would be what? You had the rest of Thursday, you had the rest of Friday in which you can conduct the budget, and you chose not to do that? I mean, Soraya, we have now a government that it is very clear. So let's go back to the beginning. Curfew and confinement. So you have an Attorney General who is a public officer, not a politician. And there's a difference, right? So you can appoint an attorney general as a political appointee, meaning he sits in the Senate, or you can appoint him as a public officer, and the standard for a public officer is much greater
Right.
because he has to be objective.
Right.
You have attorney general that gave advice to the government that there is no difference between the word confinement and curfew.
Oh my. Sorry.
Okay?
He did?
And that we don't require the state of emergency. Yet every single other prime minister in this region has understood that in order to impose a curfew on people,
You
must have a
must have
state
an-
of emergency.
Exactly.
And I want solutions to appreciate the subtle difference here. By having a state of emergency puts more obligations on the government to be transparent on how they use that authority.
Exactly.
Confinement, there's nothing. Means that the government is literally taking away your freedom with no accountability. Then you had now Miguel Frevier making a public threat to a person who is now employed by the government. Silence. Then you have Christopher Hunt's court case that comes up. The police officer that charged him was in a car accident
Oh wow.
and had a medical excuse
Wow.
not to attend the court case. And the judge, because the Attorney General's office never put forward the police officer's case throughout the case.
Oh wow.
Then you had Jean, in which the two police officers that had charged Jean were never told that the case was taking place.
Oh,
The Attorney
wow.
General's
Oh.
office never presented a case. And so therefore the judge threw out the case because there was no evidence presented to the case. Then you have the Rover Gate, in which the Attorney General advised the new controller of customs to withdraw the case. This is the same Attorney General that was the lawyer for Ernest Hilaire. Conflict of interest. The case was being prosecuted by the DPP. The DPP never knew that they were withdrawing the case. Okay, so it means that here is a case that was being brought against Ernest, never saw the light of day.
Oh Lord Jesus.
Okay? Now you have a situation where a government has made it that Alan Chastanet needs to speak when they say I should speak. And go ahead and just close, because it's, I say that, I met a couple of friends and they say to me, Alan, what happened? I said, the reality is I cannot close the budget. The only persons that can close the budget if they want to close the budget is the government.
Exactly. You're
So
in opposition.
why would the government choose to close the budget and 5 people have not spoken? And here are the 5 people, you said it, Soraya.
Yeah.
The Minister of Commerce, and here we're dealing with inflation, we're dealing with supply chain issues, we're dealing with a shortage of rice flour and sugar, because she's in charge of that. She has nothing to say. The Minister of Infrastructure and the Minister of Energy, because energy prices are going up. We're now going to spend $160 million on roads. We don't know what's happening with the Rodney Bay Road. We don't know what's happening with the HIA airport. He has nothing to say. Every single minister spoke about the need for housing. The Minister of Housing, and we know that he's not shy, said nothing. Globally, we have now the war with Ukraine. And we're depending more and more on support from countries. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, nothing to say.
He said nothing.
We have the Minister of Education, right? The kids have suffered for 2 years. They're boasting about new computers. I want to know, are the computers like the the laptops we gave. The laptops that we gave included software, included the books, and were part of the school curriculum. Are the new laptops that the government is going to give, are we going back to the old days of just giving them an empty computer? Or are these part of the e-books that we have established? But we don't know, because the Minister of Education didn't speak.
Now, let me interject. Was he there? Because I saw something where he said he is ill. He's in confinement or quarantine. He is saying that he's sick. But let me tell you.
But we don't know.
We don't know.
Nobody said anything.
Nothing official.
Did you hear the Prime Minister say anything?
No, I heard nobody. I didn't hear the Speaker of the House said anything. Now, let me say something here. In terms of the children and in terms of the laptops given to them, I don't expect it to be anything grand. Let me tell you why. When we have a Prime Minister, when he was in opposition, what he was saying is that it's a youth economy. However, he was so proud in his budget speech to bellow, saying he has to give Ojo Labs $985,000 for unpaid salaries or whatever. So why can't you pay it? Because what your government was doing was ensuring that our young people stay in a job. We did our part and Ojo Labs did their part. Can you expound on this for me, please?
I would love to. So let's go back and look at Ojo Labs. She had a situation where there was a program called NICE. You remember that program?
Yes.
And on average, people were getting paid $1,500 for NICE. And the vast majority of people who were being employed under the NICE program were working for government.
Right.
And none of those people went through the Public Service Commission. So they actually were working for government on contract.
Directly, right, on a contract, yes.
So the fact is there was zero opportunity for those persons to be employed full-time within government. Do you understand what I mean by that? So when we came in, we said, okay, we think this is a good program to be able to support and getting young people into the door. And we met with Ojo. Ojo originally were here in St. Lucia, and I'm trying to remember the name of the project. They employed 150 kids in another IT sector. Yeah? And when I met the guy, David, and so for full transparency here, when David came to St. Lucia, he originally came to St. Lucia to buy a property at Sugar Beach. And my wife ended up being his lawyer. And David then opened up a business here in St. Lucia where he employed 150 kids.
Wow.
And I was very excited. So when my wife said, look, you really should meet this guy when I was in opposition. And I met with him. He said, boy, they've been trying to meet with the government, with Emma. No luck in meeting with Emma. So when I understood what he was doing, I was very excited. And I said, look, as soon as I get into government, I want to expand this program. When I came into government, 3 weeks later, his business was sold.
Wow.
It was bought by a Canadian company. And the Canadian company decided to shut down their operations in St. Lucia. I have to tell you, I was heartbroken. So I was in Dallas meeting with American Airlines. And David, his main office was in Austin, which is about 40 minutes away. So I said, you know what, I had some time. I got on a plane, I flew down to Austin. And I called him up. I said, David, I'm here in Austin. I'd love to take you out to lunch. And I met with him and his partner, John. And they had left their old company. And they're now opening up this new company called Ojo. And the city of Austin had extended incredible incentives to them. And everything they're currently doing in St. Lucia, they were actually going to do in Austin. I said to him, look, I would love to get you to St. Lucia. So he said, great, I'll be happy to come. And I said, but I don't want you to go to Cast Reef. I want you to go to View Fort. He goes, View Fort? I said, yeah, man. He goes, Alan. I said, okay, I will outfit your facility for you and give you a subsidized rent. And I will pay $1,000 for every new employee that you get for the first 6 months. And I would pay $500 a month for the next year for all your, so I will subsidize the payroll. Now remember, NICE was paying $1,500 indefinitely. So I'm paying $1,000 for the first 6 months and then $500 for the next year. Okay? So they said, okay, we'll do that deal. And they opened up the operations. They started with almost 50 people. It grew to 100 people. It grew to 250 people. It grew to 300 people. And today it's in excess of 500 people.
Wow. Awesome.
Okay? In
Awesome.
View 4. Now, what happened is that because Ojo was there, and because they were doing with AI, artificial intelligence, and the kids were excelling at what they were doing, when ITEL BPO came, and I said, I want you to go to View 4, they said, no problem. Because they saw
what was happening. Right.
So ITEL BPO today is now employing over 1,000 people. Now, I'm saying to you that when COVID came, Ojo decided to allow their staff members to work from home.
Okay.
Yeah? And what they found out was the productivity of their staff members went up by almost 30%.
Whoa.
Okay? So they were blown away. They said, wow. So they're leaving their kids working from home, and they said to the government, we don't need the building anymore. But guess who needs the building?
ITEL BPO.
ITEL BPO. Okay? So you're talking about now, Ojo pays salaries starting at $3,500.
Whoa.
Okay? And the senior people, so 1 out of every 8 people is getting $7,000. Okay? ITEL BPO is starting at $2,500 and moving up from there. So I take my constituency, right? These are some of the practical things that we need to appreciate as to what was happening in St. Lucia. Our economic development was northern centric. All the people in the south who needed to get a job
were
had to come up
neglected.
north.
Yes.
Okay? And what that did is that destroyed the family. So it's being able to live at home means that there are other contributions that you're making to the household that are intangible.
Yeah.
Taking care of kids, taking care of grandparents, right? Doing chores around the house. When those persons are not there, that hurts. And then the person who's now working up north doesn't have the benefit of a family house. So they got to pay rent or they got to pay transportation, one or the other, right? So it reduces the net pay that they're making.
Exactly.
And when I went around my constituency, I saw it time and time again. Now this is a constituency that has a great amount of pride because bananas was huge.
Yeah.
And people were accustomed to working in the South. And they lost that. Right? Now, Kenny Anthony was the Prime Minister and the representative from View Fort South for 20 years, Soraya. And of the 20 years, 15 years, he was in government. What did he do to move the South?
Nothing.
And emphasize what we were doing in the South?
Nothing.
How are we going to grow as a country if we cannot? You know, it's the favorite word they used to use. What is the word they use for agriculture? They say we need to diversify. Diversification is not only by sector, diversification is also geographic.
That's right.
Okay? We have all of these assets in the South that were grossly underutilized. And then you have DSH. So I'm sitting here going, What am I missing? So Tewa King was instrumental in developing the islands off of Dubai. He was the main architect and he was the contractor for the horse racing track in Dubai, which is considered to be the best horse racing track in the world. When he said he was going to build a horse racing track in St. Lucia, he did. And he did it with his own money. I want to say that again. He did it with his own money.
So let me just interject here quickly. So the narrative we were hearing that he built it on our CIP money, meaning selling our passport, is false.
Categorically. And you know what's shameful, Soraya? Is that the former prime minister would make in his presentation, his government has been in office for 9 months, and he's saying he still does not know.
Yes, I heard
that is true.
I heard him say that, and I was like, what?
Really?
Yeah.
So you've not been able to go to Invest St. Lucia, find the contract, and understand exactly. So
the lies and deceit is just too much.
The horse racing track would never make money. Okay? And that's why we agreed to lease the land for the horse racing track. The only land that was leased, Soraya, was 200 acres, which is the horse racing track. All of the other land that DSH is developing on, they bought. And they bought for $60,000 US an acre.
Whoa!
Okay? That information is at Invest St. Lucia. How is it that Kenny Anthony has not been able to ascertain that information yet? Because he doesn't want to.
The lies and deceit to ring in the heads of St. Lucians. Because when I heard him say that in his presentation, I'm like, are you serious? Really?
Really? I mean, I listened to him and I said, wow.
Me
You've
too.
been in government for 9 months, you still don't know?
Don't know?
You're still begging somebody to tell you the information?
God.
This is a joke.
Big one
and
too.
The reality is, what was that land being used before? That was the old Beau Saint-Just farm, which was 30 acres. And we transferred the Beau Saint-Just farm to Volette in Micoud. 100 acres. And you know, I want St. Lucians not to take anybody's word for anything. I want you to drive to Volette and see what has been built there on 100 acres to replace Beau Saint-Just. Beau Saint-Just was dead. People think I'm being facetious when I say the only thing that was growing at Beau Saint-Just was ticks.
Whoa.
That's true. It was paying no taxes. It generated no jobs. Nothing. Now you have a horse racing track. And guess what? The horses that were brought to St. Lucia on the plains were not paid for by the government of St. Lucia. Were paid for by Tewa King. And who did he bring? He brought the best people in the world. The two best horse racing companies in the world had horses participating here. It's like with Cabot. The best golf course designer, listen to me carefully, the best golf course designer in the entire world is Ben Crenshaw. That's who's designing. The people who are buying real estate at Cabot are some of the most successful people in the world. To put St. Lucia on the map, land that was staying nothing, zero, nothing was happening. They brought their money. And yes, and I want to say it again, borrowed $10 million from NIC because they felt it was important that the local economy was participating in not because they needed it. That was their formula. and they got criticized for trying to reach out to include St. Lucians.
And not only that, that loan agreement, because of the noise made by the previous opposition, Philip JP and his gang, St. Lucians lost millions because that was the highest return on investment for the NIC with an interest rate of 5%, whereas the other deals were like 1 point something percent, 2 point something percent. So we really lost out St. Lucians.
And you know, Soraya, a tremendous amount of money that the NIC has, they invest in the stock market.
Yes, they do. They do.
Okay? They invest in all kinds of other instruments in the world.
The stock
So
market is very
investing-
unstable. So it's like
investing in land in St. Lucia that was going to generate jobs and then expand
Exactly.
the economy. Really? And we wanted to chastise everybody. And this is why I'm saying that the budget unraveled the big lie.
Yes, it did. It did. It did. It did. It did. And those who are
this
smart
is why,
will see
in
it.
many ways, you know, I don't want to say that it was only because the Labour Party did not want me to speak about these things. But I can say to you categorically, because I've been in the House, this hatred that is being targeted to me is a disease.
Yeah, yeah. And a dirty disease.
Okay? And who does it benefit? So when the Labour Party prevents me from speaking, who does that benefit? Does that benefit the people of St. Lucia?
No.
When 5 people of theirs don't speak, does that benefit the people of St. Lucia?
No, it
So
doesn't.
where is it that in your action that you're putting people first and that somehow this is a good thing? But again, you know, Soraya, I don't take any of this thing personally.
Personally.
Because, as I said to you, Alan Chastanet is irrelevant. You hear me?
Exactly.
Irrelevant in the
Exactly.
scheme of things. I love my country. I genuinely do. I am so proud of so many St. Lucians. And I think that there are so many more St. Lucians that can make a contribution, but they've just not been given
The
a
opportunity.
fair chance.
Yes.
Okay? I want St. Lucians to know, when I said that economics has no conscience and at least colonialization had a conscience, to understand what I was saying. Nobody gives a hoot about us. Nobody cares about us.
No.
And what I was making is colonialization is bad. But as bad as it was, it's not as bad as when you cannot be competitive globally. In business, people don't care.
Yeah, I wish that statement you made was expounded, because right now we are understanding exactly what you meant. You were looking at it from the point of view of a country. But right now we are able to be out there on the world stage and try to fend for ourselves. But they did not interpret what you were saying in this vein.
And it's a statement that I had been made many times. And it is a motivating factor in me to make St. Lucia self-sufficient, self-viable.
Exactly.
That's what I am trying to do. And again, Soraya, I'm not looking for any sympathy. I'm not looking for any empathy. I want St. Lucia to do well.
Me too. It's my country. It's our country.
Okay? And so if you know, let's take Castries South as an example. And Ernest spoke about that this was the constituency of George Charles. And he lamented how bad off Castries South is. And he's correct. John Odlum won for 2 terms. Robert Lewis won for 2 terms. And now Ernest is won for 2 terms. Of those 6 terms in government, Labour Party was in government for 4 terms. So the last time the United Workers' Party represented that constituency was a guy called Desmond Brathwaite.
Desmond Brathwaite, yeah.
Okay? So in 4 terms in government in which the constituency was being represented by Labour, how is it Labour didn't recognize that the constituency was being neglected?
Now, let me tell you, based on my research, Castries South was in Labour's hand for over 60 years. So it says that the constituency not improving is as a result of Labour doing nothing for them.
So here's what happened, Soraya. What we achieved in 5 years, and if you want to really say because of COVID, in 3 years, Anse-Ray, Soufrière, Micoud South, Micoud North, Dennery South, Castries Southeast, Babonneau, that all of a sudden the contrast of development and non-development became more apparent.
Very true.
Okay? And exactly what I was hoping that would happen has happened. Meaning that now that motivates. So let's take Marcia. Philip Pierre has been the representative of Marcia for 5 terms, of which 3 of those terms his government was in office. So you're telling me building a proper sporting facility between the Marcia grounds and Mindu Phillip Park wasn't obvious? How many schools do they have in that constituency? How many households with very little backyards and very little facilities? So building a beautiful facility with a track and basketball courts and a pool and weightlifting, that's obvious. You're telling me 5 terms have gone by and you've not seen the necessity to put the people first?
Only
really?
now he's seen.
Only now? Only now?
What a laugh.
What I'm saying to you is the Labour Party now, happily, is under pressure to now meet the standard of the United Workers' Party. And that's what I'm happy about.
And I am happy about it too. Yes.
And I'm not gloating. What I want to see them do is better.
It's better. But let me cut you short there. How can you do better? And look at your behavior as a prime minister in the House of Parliament. So are you saying to my sons and the other young people of St. Lucia that you should not aspire to be a millionaire? You shouldn't aspire to have one of the biggest businesses in St. Lucia.
Oh, no. You as a mother should not aspire to make sure your child gets
Thank
an
you.
education.
Thank you. I should not
Really?
aspire that they go to the highest level. Really? This is madness.
I mean, this is crazy. This is crazy. So the greatest indictment against the Labour Party is their mediocrity.
Yes.
Okay? And that what they want to do is they want to personalize all of these issues. So this is why I said, and I say these things deliberately, this is kindergarten behavior.
Yes, it is. It is. We don't want
when
this
you go to
kind of
kindergarten,
behavior.
what is it? Name calling,
Yeah. Pulling hair,
okay?
pinching.
Right? This is bullying.
Yes.
That's what you see going on in the kindergarten. Okay? Infantile behavior. That is what this Labour Party is representing. That is what is being tried to pass as good governance. And I want to say this because this is very, very important, because you and I will differ a little bit on this one. And that's okay. And I want you to know, Soraya, that I'm all for difference of opinions. And a person, I will not mention his name. He called me today. We constantly contact. We're on opposite sides, okay? And he said to me, "Oh, you're getting a taste of your own medicine." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you said to people that they did not have the moral authority to speak." Remember that statement?
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Well, saying that people don't have the moral authority to speak and denying them the opportunity to
Two
speak."
different things.
Two different things.
Two different things.
I was only saying the moral authority because they were in government for 15 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And what they were now saying, they didn't do. That's all. That's the moral authority. Okay? So don't try to make them out to be the same thing.
Exactly.
Do not try to make them out to be the same thing. So, the issue at hand right now is how do we move forward as a country? And that's what I was focusing on. And if we can't have an honest discussion without playing petty politics and taking advantage of people's emotions, because the thing that people are the most afraid of, you know what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Change.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people are scared
We
of.
all are afraid of change.
We're terrified. So all of a
Yes.
sudden, when somebody's proposing something that's unique or different or out of the box thinking, it's
Yeah.
very easy to gather enemies against that person simply because
Very true.
he's different and he wants to change your life and he's trying to mess you up, despite the fact that what you're doing today is not working. Because there's an old saying, insanity is what? Is
Doing the
continuing to do the same thing over and over and believing it's going to generate something new.
But let me cut in there. You, Uncle Shas, and when you got into government, and I think what worked well for you is that you were not playing politics. And this is what this new administration is doing. They're playing politics. When you went into government, you did not like chase this one here, chase this one here. You embraced a lot of the St. Lucia Labour Party supporters, right? Now, I am hearing, I got wind that, and which I find is very wrong, that one lady in customs was transferred laterally, but she only got the letter on Friday, 4:30, that she's going to be transferred to another ministry. Now, what we are saying is that this government promised to be a government that is very transparent and inclusive. But when I look at you and the way you governed 2016, 2020, 21, you were the one that was inclusive. You embraced the St. Lucia Labour Party supporters. Even some of the Flobos got upset with you because you embraced everybody. But what we're seeing happening now is that people, as long as they know you associated or maybe voted for the United Workers' Party, you're going to get kicked out of a job or you're going to be victimized. Now, on the point of Inspector Chico and that Rovergate case, I've said this on my live already, and I am saying to you that I was notified that this gentleman, Mr. Peter Chico, never spoke to you. You never told him to do X, Y, and Z. But here in the public eyes, we are being told he did what he did because of you.
So he did not have to do anything I said. Because my grandfather ended up becoming a controller of customs.
Wow.
And my father was in shipping. And I understood the power of a controller of customs.
Yes,
in fact,
lots of power.
in many ways, a controller of customs is more powerful
than the police.
Than the prime minister. Okay? And Philip here alluded to this, about influencing different offices. So there are certain offices in which the DPP is an example, the Auditor General, the Control of Customs. Our job as Prime Minister is to ask questions. That's all. We can't direct the office to do anything. The first acting controller of customs that I had, and I don't want to put names in here.
Yeah.
After the information became apparent of what had happened, and the person was taking some time to pursue the case, is when I found out that he was the person that actually gave the pre-delivery and never said so.
Wow.
So my confidence in him waned significantly. The next controller of customs that came in, there were several incidences that took place with that person outside of the Rovergate investigation. But when it came to the Rovergate investigation, the person said to me that if the Ministry of Foreign Affairs paid for the duty and the VAT, in St. Lucia, it would bring the case to an end. I said, wow, okay. So I said, but in order for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to pay the amount, I want you to know the kind of conversation so that you know that this is not about persuading anybody of anything. It's simply to ask questions.
Okay.
So I said, so if in fact the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is instructed to pay the money, who owns the car? So they said to me, what do you mean? I said, well, the issue at hand here is whether Ernest actually owns the car or not, which is what customs is supposed to answer. So the only way that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs can pay the VAT is on the basis that the car is owned by Ernest. Because as a returning ambassador or diplomat, he's entitled to the car duty-free, and that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs would pay for the VAT. But the assumption is that he owns the car. I said, so can you tell me that he owns the car? So the person said, well, no. I said, so, well, why would how can Foreign Affairs pay? And I said, the reality is, ma'am, is that we now know that there's an issue. That's why the Director of Finance wrote to the Controller of Customs to say, can you please simply clarify who owns the car? That's what your job is. Your job is not to determine whether he got the car illegally or how he got the car, simply to answer the question, who owns the car? If in fact you did not have all of the information and it was a new car, you cannot give it the delivery without the evidence that the person owned the car. And because he paid for the car, doesn't mean that he owns the car. If it's a brand new car, why can't you show the receipt of the car, the registration of the car, and all of those things? That's why the car was on pre-delivery. Now, I say this because that is the role of a prime minister. It's not to dictate anything. It's like with the impacts report. You know, when I met with the U.S. government, I said to the U.S. government, look, you're asking my government to do the impossible. When the Jamaicans came down here, by our own laws and by your own laws, they had an obligation to do the investigation with the DPP's office. You cannot work outside the DPP's office.
So that's why it was
so
thrown.
The impact report itself is worthless.
It's invalid, yeah. Because
now,
you can't work outside.
It may be true, but it's not admissible as evidence.
Because it wasn't done through the DPP, the confines of the DPP. Understood.
And the
Makes sense.
DPP to ensure that it was being done within the laws of St. Lucia.
Exactly. So, yeah.
That's
Not
all.
rocket
And so
science.
I'm just saying to you, when you want to suggest that a prime minister is getting involved, a prime minister's job or a minister's job is to ask questions
Exactly.
and to make sure that whatever is being done the right way. So there's this big controversy going on. I'm not scared to speak about it. On my court case.
Yeah. $500,000 for
Okay.
$38,000. Wow. Really?
But you see, and Soraya, I want you to investigate this. The court case is what's called a private tort case. Okay? It's important to understand what that is. This is not a
Yes.
criminal case.
I know.
This is a case to recover $38,000. Okay? And the premise of the case is that the money to do the lights for the Soufriere field were transferred from the Taiwanese to the Soufriere Town Council. And the Soufriere Town Council decided, after building the lights, to do an opening ceremony, a thank you ceremony, to the then ambassador, who was Tom Chu. So the Soufriere Town Council paid for the stage and the lights because it was a theatrical show or an entertainment show. After the opening ceremony, the then government, which was United Workers' Party, decided to have a public meeting because we had just come through Hurricane Thomas. And yes, we were leading into politics, into elections. Yes? And so a public meeting took place. That has nothing to do with Alan Chastanet. Who was the political leader of the party at the time? Stephenson King. Okay? And because the stage and the lights were already going up, and because it was at the same time as the Creole Festival, and because I had previously been involved in events, a friend of mine called me and said, Third World is going to be performing. In Dominica.
I remember that.
Would you like to get them to come to St. Lucia? I can do a special deal for you. Okay? Now, Soufriere did not have carnival. Soufriere did not have jazz because we had Thomas. So I said, no problem. I went to what is now described as the Friends of Soufriere and said, the people of Soufriere have not had anything. There's going to be this big event, and I would love to be able to bring Third World here. So we raised money. We paid for the appearance fee for Third World. We paid for them to stay at a hotel. We paid for the land transportation for them. So the only thing that the Soufriere Town Council paid for was the catering, $2,200. Okay, the court case takes place, and the court case, very interestingly, came about because of remember that constituency investigating team that they had?
Yes.
And the judge spoke to that.
It was not
The
even
judge said-
from the audit department. You just have an investigating team investigating something financial matter like that. This is crazy.
Well, what's interesting is the judge said that the evidence submitted by the state, based on the investigation that was done, is not admissible
Wow.
because the people are not recognized. Who are these people?
Who are these people exactly?
Why is it the investigation was not done by the audit department?
Exactly.
Why was not the audit sent to the audit department to be able to substantiate the claims? That was never done. But the important part about the case is that the Soufriere Town Council is what we call as a body corporate. It's a separate entity. Why is it a separate entity? Because the people in Soufriere used to be, like Castries, elected. So it's a separate entity. So the issue of standing becomes of importance. The same Attorney General, Kim St. Rose, gave the opinion to the government to say, once the money is transferred into the Sufor Town Council, it belongs to the Sufor Town Council. Meaning
Makes sense.
that it's only that entity can sue. So let me give you an example. If you were walking down the street with your mother, Soraya, and your mother got into a car accident, and your mother did not want to sue the person, and you decided to sue the person, you would not be allowed to do so.
Exactly.
Because you were not the affected person.
Makes sense.
Same thing in this situation. So the
Wow.
government claimed that this was government money. When the judge
my
said to them, this is going to go nowhere, they amended the claim to say, well, this is public money. The judge ruled against them. They appealed. The appeals court said, there was 3 judges. 2 of the judges said they were not satisfied that the judge referred to the amended claim. And because of that, they felt that the case should be heard again. But they accept the fact that standing is going to be difficult. The 3rd judge said, because the amended claim came before the judge made his decision, even though he did not refer to it, he believes that the judge would have taken it into consideration. And even if the judge didn't take it into consideration, it would make no difference in his judgment. So when we came into government with that decision, here's what I was confronted with. Do we do like Rovergate and go to the court and say we're withdrawing the case? I'm just saying to you, that was an option, right?
And you didn't
So
do
imagine
it.
imagine what would have happened.
I know.
Do you proceed with the case? And if you proceed with the case, who do you select as your lawyer? They had Astafan. If you decide not to use Astafan, the allegation can be, oh, that Chastanet was just trying to fix things, and he put a lawyer that was his friend, and blah, blah, blah.
Uncle Shas, you're so brilliant explaining that. I hope my viewers are listening attentively. Listen, people. Go ahead, sir.
So the 3rd choice is to say, okay, we've spent $500,000 US, EC, on a tort case to reclaim 36, because remember, this is not a criminal case.
No, it's not.
This is a tort case to
Private
reclaim
tort
$36,000.
Yes,
The
ridiculous.
High Court has already ruled that there is no case. The Appeals Court has suggested that there is no case, but suggested maybe you should go back and retrial the case. How do you proceed? What do you do? So I left it. Now, if this government chooses to proceed with the case, that's their prerogative. And maybe it's better that they choose to do that. But here is a government that has been claiming for the last 9 months that what they inherited was so bad.
Yeah.
Oh, the economy is so bad. We have no money and blah, blah, blah. And you're now going to go and find more money. And this is in the face of what, Soraya? That Stephenson King said there was corruption. Correct? As a Minister of Infrastructure.
Loud and clear, he said.
Philip Pierce, a former Minister of Infrastructure, claimed that there was corruption. They knew categorically there was corruption. 9 months has come by. They can't point to any evidence.
No, they can't.
Of any corruption. Really?
But let me ask you something.
This is the farce.
They have also allocated $1 million for a special prosecutor for corruption, they said.
So we've just spoken about impacts. In order to have a criminal investigated, is the DPP who has to make that determination.
That is right, because we are going to have another case of impacts.
So if you now want to hire a special prosecutor, the special prosecutor has to come at the request of the DPP.
That's right.
But it means that you must be able to provide the DPP with sufficient evidence to
right.
suggest
That's
something
right.
went wrong.
That's right. And this is what St. Lucians need to understand. We cannot allow politicians and this government to continue playing us. DPP
So you
has
could-
to be involved. Where is the case?
So let's take the Rodney Bureau. The same contract that Fresh Start was given
Right.
is the same contract that Renault was given, the same contract that Skelly was given, the same contract that Nationwide was given. So how is it that the Fresh Start contract is bad and not everybody else's? Why is Renault's contract not bad? The same
is
technocrats,
sad.
the same process, the exact same thing that existed. But I'll tell you this, Soraya. When we see the success of the budget that we've had today, it begs the question. If I had a minister of infrastructure that was focused on working and not plotting, how much further ahead?
We would have
And let me
been.
repeat that again. If I had a minister of infrastructure that was more focused on working than plotting. So he said it for 5 years, plotting. Really?
Now, another thing I want to ask you, Philip J. Pierre, as I said, the narrative is so poisonous. I got the information where your government negotiated with the trade unions on behalf of the civil servants, and now he is puffing up his chest like now they're gonna get their money. Now they're gonna get their money. Now the only reason they are getting their money, as you rightfully said, is because the economy was on an upward movement because of the way you handled the pandemic. But he is trying to take the praise.
And look at that. He said that the debt to GDP was going to go past 100%.
Yes, he said that.
Okay? The debt to GDP peaked at 83
Yes.
because the GDP contracted by 23%. But we've recovered now 40% of our GDP. And in reality, the net borrowing was only 10%.
That's right. And this
And
is
more
what he
important-
has to tell the people of St. Lucia.
Correct.
Net borrowing.
So the debt to GDP, I suspect, when the social economic review comes out,
Yes.
will be in the 70s. And by
Yes.
the end of by the April of 2023, according to their budget, the GDP would have recovered fully 100%.
But that's given the fact that they are able to manage the economy, because from what we are seeing is a lot of complaining and blaming you, blaming this one.
So here's the problem. So let's take our good friend, our mutually good friend, the Minister of Tourism.
Not my friend again.
So the first thing that he did is we had West Indies cricket playing here. He refused to pay the money to have West Indies cricket playing here. In less than 24 hours, Barbados scooped it up.
Yes.
Barbados has been rammed. Okay? And Barbados's name has been all over the UK market because
yes.
every TV show, everything is speaking about Barbados.
Free marketing. Look at this.
Free marketing. Okay? It's only yesterday, and I you need to help me. You need to help me. Yesterday, the Minister of Health announced that foreigners and nationals can return back to St. Lucia who are vaccinated without a PCR test. That's huge. Best kept secret. Why? Grenada did it already. Some of the other islands, the Dominican Republic, Mexico, are weeks ahead of us. And so what has happened, Soraya, is that the advanced bookings for St. Lucia have dropped significantly.
Oh, I'm not
Okay?
surprised.
Now,
I'm not surprised. I'm
I
not
want I
surprised.
want I want your listeners to understand this. The Remember we spoke about economics has no conscience. Economics is very unforgiving.
Very.
When
And
the
with the
price of
mistakes they made. Go
Yes,
ahead.
when the price of fuel goes up, it makes the risk of flying planes higher.
Yes.
Because I keep saying this, I was in the airline industry, and when the price of fuel goes up, it doesn't make the plane fly higher. It doesn't make the plane fly faster. There's
No.
no added value.
No.
All it is to the bottom line.
Exactly. Cost.
So when the demand for St. Lucia is waning, and the cost of flying to St. Lucia goes
It's
up,
so expensive.
so JetBlue was supposed to have 2 flights from New York. They cut it already. The day after they cut the flight, the airfare went from $450 to $1,000. Okay? I believe that if in fact this government doesn't change things around dramatically, that the second flight out of Miami will also be dropped. Now, the problem is that when you cut capacity, then you have no way of getting people here.
No.
And so therefore the numbers of arrivals will
Will
drop.
drop.
Okay? It's the same thing that we said. We said to them, do not allow the fuel prices, find a way to subsidize the increase in the electricity cost, because St. Lucia is an export-orientated economy. Our bananas, our manufacturing, and our tourism, our call centers. So when you allow your local costs to go up, they become less competitive. If they
Yes.
become less competitive,
That
they're
is.
going to get less business.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Okay?
they'll go other places. Exactly.
And this is to your point that the government can announce a budget, but can they execute the budget?
Exactly.
This is a
Can
government.
they? That's
They're
my
sitting there
fear.
saying. So I listened to them, and they said, "Oh, they're going to increase the amount of money to the SSDF by $2 million." You really believe that the poverty that we have in this country is a $2 million problem?
No. No.
That's the problem, Soraya.
And let me just tell you that he is in the House of Parliament, and he was boasting about the distress fund and some other fund. He is allocating either 2 million, but I know your government, they removed the distress fund. I think it was $500,000, and they brought it into your office, the Prime Minister's office, and they
As a-
refused
as-
to say that your office, your government, dished out $5 million helping the people in the distress fund.
So what we did is we said the distress fund makes no sense because the demands on the distress funds are well in excess. So we used a term that was already in the budget called a contingency fund. So 5% of the overall budget of government was considered contingency. So in order to give us more ability to access more money, that is what we used. Okay? So I remember in 1 year, $6 million we spent, whether it was healthcare. I remember there was a gentleman, I won't mention his name,
Of course not.
that was involved in an electrical accident.
I remember
And
that.
literally his face got burnt out. I mean, it was a horrible picture to look at.
Yeah.
And we ended up spending, boy, I want to say it was close to 300,000 US dollars sending him to Colombia. And it was remarkable to see what was done to help him, right? Persons going to Martinique. I mean, it wasn't just people's houses being burnt. People's houses being burnt was, I don't want to minimize it, but it was much less than all
The
of the other
medical
things that we were
cost.
dealing with.
Yes,
right?
understood.
But, and it really is sad, but it says a lot, Soraya, that there were people just that because they weren't benefiting maybe themselves, or they felt they didn't have enough of a say, that all of a sudden would push this narrative of hate, of misinformation. And I want to say to Sarai, and it's not a complaint, okay? The media houses that try to portray themselves as media houses, and I want solutions to really genuinely understand it. What's the training that people go through to become a media professional? How much money are they getting paid? How do we know that media houses are being independent and objective? Okay? And when I listen to some stories, I mean, I listened to a morning show yesterday. I was just shocked that what was being passed as journalism in this country, right? And I feel sorry for the people of St. Lucia because not many St. Lucians have the time. They're very, very busy, preoccupied. People are struggling, right? And they're dealing with life. And they'll come home and just watch the TV news and thinking that this is what happened and this is the truth.
Yes.
And people don't have the time to be able to decipher that. And I want to say to you, Sarai, because it was a point I wanted to make before. The United Workers, this last election was lost not because of Labour Party. Labour Party didn't win the election. United Workers Party lost the election.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they did.
Okay? And the sooner that the supporters of my party can accept that and understand why we lost the election, and then to do something about it, that's when the difference is going to happen, right? And so the reality is that there are things that we have to do in our party, which I've shared with the people in my own party. And the quicker we can do it and show that the people of St. Lucia that there is an alternative, we will succeed.
Amen.
Now, the reality is, Soraya, did we deserve to lose the election? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. No.
But the reality, that is what life is. And, you know, when I hear a Musa want to say that I am angry and that, where?
You're not angry. They are angry. They won and they're still angry.
Okay? I am not. And I want your listeners to know, I'm not angry. Am I disappointed? Sure. Okay? And as political leader, I accept full responsibility. Full. And I feel horrible for the number of St. Lucians that we've let down. St. Lucians who put themselves on the line for our party, persons who genuinely really believed in what we were trying to do, and members of my party didn't take this thing seriously enough and were focused sadly on the wrong things, in my opinion. But this happens. And what we need to do is to pick ourselves up,
yes,
and move on. The good out of this is that solutions are going to have an opportunity to make a comparison, to see what we did under good times and bad times, and how this Labour Party is going to do. And that's why this Labour Party needs to appreciate it didn't win by a big majority. It was given a golden opportunity to reestablish themselves. But what I've seen in the last 9 months, and certainly the behavior I saw in the House, Soraya, they're not moving in the right direction. Alan Chastanet is not the issue. The leader of the United Workers Party is not the issue. You're in government. Spend your time and focus on delivering to the people of this country in very difficult and trying times. And the difficulty in the trying times it's not unique for St. Lucia. All over the world.
Exactly, all over the world. But
All
you
over
have
the
to
world.
cushion the blow. Now, I heard you, and I am looking forward to it, and I will ensure that all my viewers come across to you on Monday. So I want to know if it's confirmed, and tell us a little bit about the public meeting you plan on having on Monday.
Well, I'm very excited. First of all, it's going to be taking place in my constituency.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I'm very, very excited. I mean, I have the most. I can't even begin to tell
They
you
love you, you
how.
know. They love you. I can tell you that they love you.
Well,
Mikut South
I
love you.
I love them very, 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 very much, and I'm very proud of what we were able to achieve in 5 years, and I want so much more for my constituents. So it's going to be in my constituency, and it will be giving me an opportunity for a large part to provide the public of St. Lucia with the rebuttal that I intended to provide. And certainly I will weight it on what was said already, what I think are the next steps for the country. But the reality is, Soraya, the time is coming where we are going to have a public protest, if that's what I can call it, to
I'll be
remind the
there.
Labour Party that this supermajority that they think that
They have.
they don't they don't have it,
They don't.
and that we have to hold them. And I believe that a government is elected, and I think that I will support them. But the reality is the vindictiveness,
Yes, too
the
much.
arrogance, the bluffing
Too much.
is too much. And even this thing about the persons that they have in their cabinet. I keep on asking Philip here, what is the rationale for having Richard Frederick in your cabinet? Now, when I heard that the government, on assuming office, applied to the U.S. government for his U.S. visa, that's an embarrassment.
Yes. Yes.
But
It's an embarrassment.
what is worse is that when he was turned down, that they're not accepting the fact that maybe some of the stories that are being said about him are true. And then, in order to justify keeping Ernest Hilaire in your cabinet, you take it upon yourself to suspend a court case.
Exactly. And the audacity to accompany Ernest Hilaire, Speaker of the House, Prime Minister, into a courthouse set a very bad precedence for the people of St.
Huge,
Lucia.
huge. And then you're telling me that something as important as national security, that it was an afterthought as to who the Minister of National Security was going to be. Then you stood up and you said, well, it's me. Okay, so you're the Minister of Finance, you're the Minister of Economic Development, you are the Minister of Youth Economy, and now you're the Minister of National Security, and we really believe that as one person that you're going to be able to do all of those things? So the reality is it means that you're going to have to rely on the support that you have within your office. And who are those persons? Richard Frederick and Wayne Gerard? So you're telling me
Really?
that Richard Frederick and Wayne Gerard are the persons driving the national
Oh
security of this
my
country?
God.
And we want to
This is
sit back and
crazy.
ask, why is crime going the way it is?
Thank you.
Really?
Big
I mean,
question marks. Big question
and
marks.
Soraya, I'm going to put them on the spot.
Yes, you have to.
Where are the voices, independent voices in our country? Where is the Bar Association? Where's the Chamber of
The
Commerce?
Bar Association, the Chamber of Commerce, everybody who spoke against the United Workers' Party government has gone silent. Now, Uncle Shas, my listeners are asking what time on Monday is the virtual meeting and where would it be streamed so that they could see it, because I won't have my show on Monday. I'll give your party the opportunity of getting my viewers coming across to you.
So it's on Monday at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
And it's on GTV. I believe that we're organizing for some of the other TV stations to air it
Okay.
as
Oh,
well.
wow. Oh,
And it will
wow.
also be live on a couple of radio stations. So
Okay.
please
Wow.
look out, know that it's coming, and hopefully by tomorrow they'll be able to put out the flyers and announcements in terms of exactly where you'll be able to hear and see it. But
Now
I'm very
this
excited about.
this is exciting because I think people right now, you're gonna get a lot of people tuning in and listening because we need to know the truth. What happened in the house was unforgivable. Now, Uncle Shas, you have to come back on my show. So please give your final words to my people because we could go on all night. My producer is asking me to wrap it up. So just give your final words to my audience.
Thank you very much, Soraya, and again, I thank you for the opportunity to be on tonight, and certainly to your viewers. And what a wonderful job that you're doing. And I want to say to your viewers, Soraya has not been one of those persons that to just say she thinks everything is going well. I want you all to know that she and I don't always agree on everything, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's only when you have an open and frank discussion, and as we say, an evidence-based decision as to what's going to happen. So I want to thank you very much for the opportunity tonight. I want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing in keeping the truth alive in this country. I want to say to your viewers in particular that in order for us to progress in life, we all have to care. And staying silent is not going to achieve that. I want you to think for a moment of what's taking place in the Ukraine, where a country's been invaded. The world has decided that it cannot get involved directly. And people are being killed, innocent people are being killed. Homes and livelihoods are being destroyed. And people from Ukraine are choosing to stay in the Ukraine and to fight against unbelievable odds. In fact, I think the term that they use to describe themselves is freedom fighters.
Mm-hmm.
Things are not that bad in St. Lucia. But it's even more reason why we need to stand up against things that are not going well. That's your right as a citizen. Whether it was United Workers' Party in government or whether it's Labour Party in government, the same thing applies.
Yes.
You need to voice your opinion.
Yes.
And in voicing your opinion and pushing it forward, but at the same time still listening to what other people are saying to come to the right decision. Because ultimately, what is it we want? We want to see our country progress. We know our country is not doing well enough because it cannot afford to provide the support for the more vulnerable in our society. It cannot afford to invest in moving our country forward with the necessary investments. So you need to stand up for what is right. You need to demand better. Always.
Always.
Always. So again, I want to thank you for the opportunity of speaking tonight. I want to remind you, I'm not angry. I understand politics and how politics are played. I get it. But if in fact the Labour Party is allowed to convey to people that the reason to stop the budget debate is because Alan Chastanet was an arrogant person and he didn't want to bend to deciding when he should speak, that would be a sad day for our democracy. That's not what the issue is. There's an obligation on the government's behalf, presenting the largest budget, to have its ministers present their case. If in fact that all of the Labour Party members had spoken and I chose not to speak, I understand why people would be upset with me. But here's the reality. The reality is that the budget took place and ended prematurely. 5 ministers did not speak. The only reason was to silence me. And Ernest Hilaire said it from day one, that if I didn't speak at a particular time, that they would penalize me. But in penalizing me, who did they hurt?
The people.
They didn't hurt me. They hurt St. Lucians, who had a right to hear from those ministers. My constituents from Mico South were denied hearing their representative. Because understand that Parliament is made up of elected members. My responsibility is to the people of Mico South. And the government deprived me of the opportunity to speak to them only because of their own arrogance. And this will not change unless the people of St. Lucia see enough is enough. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Uncle Shas. You actually had 1.2 viewers watching you on Facebook, and we had some, I'll get the figures later, we had those also watching you on YouTube. And I really thank you for coming, accepting my invitation. And this shows me that you are a leader of progress, because Soraya is somebody, she calls the shots. She says, listen, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. You may not agree with me, but we are able to work together for the betterment of our country. And I believe that people misunderstood you, but I believe you are a marvelous person. You're a wonderful person. And we are going to talk again. This is not the last. I am there to lend my support, to lend my assistance to you, because, personally, I believe that you did a great job for St. Lucia, and we need to keep that government on track. We want them to do well, but we also have to hold them accountable. Now,
Correct.
my people, yes, Uncle Charles. Now, my people, you all have been so wonderful. You all bought so many coffees. On my next show, which will be on Tuesday, because I'm going to send all of you across to Uncle Charles UWP conference, budget debate. I am sending all of you, over there. So, you don't have so on Monday, but you'll have so on Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Now, remember, I love all of you. 1.2 viewing, and on YouTube, how many viewing? Everybody viewing everywhere. I love y'all. Be good, and I'll see y'all on Tuesday. And be sure to listen to the budget with Uncle Shas and the rest of his team on Tuesday. Love y'all loads. Bye.
We expose lies and deceit. Expect us.